Hello everyone, James Jesso here from Adventures Through the Mind. I recently had a friend come through, and he's coming through from the West Coast. He's a colleague of mine, and he's also quite a deep psychonaut, and we got to talking about dosing psychedelics because he is a type 1 diabetic. And I've had some blood sugar episodes that have come up for me during psychedelic experiences. One primary one I call the pineapple incident, another story. Either way, he and I got talking, and I thought, this is some really valuable information, how it is that he's come to, to be able to dose psilocybin as a type 1 diabetic and feel reasonably confident that what he's doing won't kill him. But there's a lot of caveats there. Either way, I thought it would be good to share that information, and he thought it would be good since he has a very professional job and his psychonautica is really on the down low that I anonymize it. So what you're going to see is my friend from out west telling us about their experiences dosing psilocybin as a type 1 diabetic. And I want to stress to you, and I guess to the YouTube reviewers, that neither of us here are condoning or endorsing the use of psilocybin in any way, but both of us agree that people are going to make their choices, and it's good to have reliable information to make those choices off of. And so that's why I've produced this video, and that's why my friend was receptive to sharing their story. Before we get there, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a thumbs up if you like it. Leave a thumbs down if you think it's absolute garbage. And thank you for doing that. From here on in, it will no longer be me.
I'm an insulin-dependent type 1 diabetic for approximately 20 years. I use needles to administer my insulin. I take a long-lasting basal shot once every 24 hours, and I accompany that with a rapid style of insulin with any sort of carbohydrate or sugar that I ingest. I've had multiple experiences with psilocybin over the last 10 to 15 years in both small doses and high doses. There is no safe way to dose while being a diabetic, a type 1 diabetic. The truth is that you should probably be sober and on point 24/7 if you have type 1 diabetes. But if you were to choose to dose psilocybin, there are avenues that I would suggest. The first one is deciding whether or not it'll be a personal experience or whether or not you want someone to sit in with you as a sitter, which would obviously be the safest way to go about doing this. Someone who understands how to check your blood and whether or not you're in a safe zone. But if you are someone who decides to have a personal experience, I would suggest letting somebody close know that this is what you're choosing to do so they can check up on you later after your experience and make sure everything's all right. And it's important that the person who is checking up on you has an understanding of what your medical needs are as a type 1 diabetic. Other things that I keep in mind to help reduce any sort of problems while dosing psilocybin would be just to treat the trip similar to how I would treat going to sleep or going into a state of unconsciousness. You want to be in as safe a place as possible, knowing that you might not be able to take care of yourself for a couple hours. To do that, I would finish my last meal approximately 4 hours before the desired time of my trip. 2 hours after finishing eating my last meal, I would check my blood, and also again 2 hours after that. And as long as I felt safe enough that I would even enter an unconscious state, such as sleeping, I would move forward in dosing. I wouldn't administer any insulin to counterbalance the psilocybin itself. I would just simply ingest the psilocybin and move forward. Alternatively, I would also suggest perhaps reducing your level of insulin by a small amount, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20%. The risks are greater having too much insulin in your body than not enough, although both can be fatal. It's easier to have a fatal experience with the tiniest amount of too much insulin compared to the tiniest amount of not enough. Well, there's risks with every factor of a type 1 diabetic's life. I wouldn't say that using psilocybin is all that different, other than that it changes your state of consciousness. And there's plenty of things that can change your state of consciousness in life. So it's a matter of acknowledging those and just trying to do things as safely as possible.
What about dying?
What about dying?
What about the fear of dying while on psilocybin as a diabetic?
So facing the potential of death under the experience of psilocybin is real, but it's not any less real than any other minute of my day. There's like always a risk of death. I mean, I could do everything I'm supposed to do. I could be as safe as I possibly am, and there's still an off chance that my autoimmune disease just makes my body work against itself. It's always lingering. It's always present. It's something that some people have the luxury of not taking into accountability as frequently as a type 1 diabetic might. But that's been a real factor in my life for 2 decades. It'd be kind of strange to be living in fear for 20 years of something that's inevitable.
Has psilocybin helped with that?
It's a possibility. I'm not sure if psilocybin was 100% responsible for helping with the ease of that fear, but I would assume that it was a contributing factor, because I have had to face the fear of dying throughout my psychedelic experiences multiple times. Every time. Pretty much every time. With psilocybin anyways. I would suggest being completely comfortable in your choice first. You know, if you're horrified of going into that experience because you're a diabetic, you're probably not even going to have a good experience. So psilocybin can offer to some people many benefits, but at the end of the day, it can't present you any benefits if you're not alive. So if you're type 1 diabetic and you're listening to this, I would definitely advise to be as cautious as possible with what your decisions are. And in all honesty, I would never advocate that there's a safe way to dose psilocybin mushrooms as a type 1 diabetic. And a big shout out to my homie James, Adventures Through the Mind, for respecting my privacy and showcasing a bit of my experiences to try to help whoever could benefit from this.